Hi, welcome out to the channel. My name's Kim. On this channel, I deal with all things related to your health, and I put that East Asian medical spin on it because that's what I do in my private practice. I've been talking about 5-element theories and the individual elements and how each one impacts our spiritual and emotional health. Well, I just finished an episode on the kidney channel and how that deals with fear and criticism. On this episode, I want to give you an example of how you can strengthen your kidney channel, especially if you might be feeling a lot of fear or a lot of criticism. Let me give you a quick recap. So in 5-element theory, the kidneys deal with emotions of fear and criticism. And most of our life is spent either reacting to the world or trying to eliminate our reaction to the world. So in that episode on Taoism and navigating fear and criticism, I talk about the energetics of fear and criticism. That energy, it pulls downwards. So think about the last time that you had some really big sudden fright. And do you remember how it felt like all the energy came out of your face, out of your head, and just dropped down to the bottom of your body? That's the energetics of fear. So there is a physical expression in our body that brings about fear. So what if fear is secondary to how energy moves in the body? And so then if we looked at it that way, a lot of our physical ailments that are impacted or driven by the kidney channel, when we have those physical ailments, there will be this constant pull downwards on our energy. So that constant sensation of fear in the body. And it won't be like that dramatic sensation of fear where you had a tremendous fright, but it'll be this subtle, constant underlying drag on your body that's pulling the energy downward, which creates that sensation of fear. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It's the physical changes in your body that changes the direction of energy movement in the body, creating different emotions. That movement causes the sensation of fear. How do the kidneys get out of balance? Well, lifestyle choices, right? Lifestyle decisions. And sometimes they're not really our decisions. We can just be worn down if we're, well, there's a lot of us today that are caregivers for our parents, caregivers for our children, caregivers for our siblings. And just that added responsibility as a caregiver is so different than raising kids. You know, the research on caregiving is that 60% of caregivers die before the person they are caregiving because of all the stress it causes. So the adrenals are associated with the kidneys, and the adrenals deal with our stress. I don't know if they use this term that much anymore, but adrenal fatigue. There's another term that we hear a lot, chronic fatigue syndrome. Those are exhaustion in the kidney channel. And the kidneys, they deal with blood pressure. They deal with our electrolyte balance in the body. They deal with the 2 lower gates. And you're going, what are the 2 lower gates? Well, the 2 lower gates in East Asian medicine are the gates to open and close the bowels and the gates to open and close the bladder. So those are the 2 lower gates. When they're not working, you know it. So what else do the kidneys deal with? Oh, memory. Well, thoughts, processing. They deal with thoughts and they deal with our willpower. So when we're really exhausted, we just don't have the willpower to get up and out of bed anymore. So those are some of the things where you can tell that your kidney channel is out of balance. And then that makes you much more susceptible to fear. It makes you much more susceptible to criticism. Well, how do you rebuild this energy, right? We know how it got out of balance. Now, is there a way we can fix it? Well, one of the things that I talked about in that episode was that you can read books or watch movies about different people, about different places. And what that does is it exposes you to different viewpoints and lets you see the world from a different perspective. And what it also does is it subtly allows you to examine your own beliefs and your own viewpoints on life. Why that's so important is the kidney channel is really about our core identity. And our core identity is being impacted by all this external influence on a daily basis. And it's being impacted by socialization. I was reading one book where they thought that socialization was 60% of our beliefs and our actions. So 60% of what we're doing in this world is not us. And when we're responding to not us, when we're not acknowledging who we truly are, well, that has a tendency to continue to break down our kidney channel. We continue to suffer from things like high blood pressure, constipation, diarrhea, just all these nuances of the kidney channel. We get more sensitive to criticism. We get more fear-based. So I'm going to share with you just a movie that I watched and just how that really impacted me and started showing me how socialization was impacting my life. So the movie that I watched was Will and Harper, and that is a great story that let me see some of the emotional and social difficulties of making such a significant change. But there's two things that happened during that movie that really struck a chord with me. And I think why I was really able to see that is because Harper was so different from me that my empathy for them was completely separate from myself. The empathy that I felt for some of the situations that Harper was in was so dramatic that it really came back and it really pushed on me to think about all this incredible socialization that I've gone through. So the first situation for me was watching when Harper walked into the football stadium by herself. Oh my gosh, I experienced so much fear because it was very, very real that this whole crowd could turn on her, could turn into this snarling mess of heaving insults and drinks at her because she wasn't staying within the line. And we are, most of the personal attacks that are directed at other people is you're not staying within the lines. I am uncomfortable if I don't know exactly where the lines are. And you are making these lines blurry. So I'm going to heave these insults, violence, personal attacks on you to get you to go back into those lines. And I think in my life as a woman, that socialization is so indoctrinated that these actions are really considered unexceptional. So if it wasn't for somebody who was so unique from me, like Harper, and if it wasn't for her walking into that stadium and me feeling that sudden sense of fear that wasn't being managed by any of my socialized reactions of, and what do we do when we're socialized? We blow things off. We ignore it. We say, oh, that's how it is. Because she was so unique from me, those breaks weren't there. And just that sudden wave of fear made me really aware of how much socialization is wrapped around having us stay within lines. and having us be what everybody or what other people want us to be. And not every individual is like that, really. Your earth people are more susceptible to wanting people to stay within the lines. But, your liver people, not so much so. Your fire people, not so much people. But I guess it really, really surprised me how much I have been ignoring that level of socialization, and just how she was able to pull it back and give me some time to think about the socialization of women in our society and the socialization of gender in our society. It was pretty dramatic. There was another thing that happened during this movie that I thought was pretty amazing. And that was when Harper and Will went out to dinner. And Harper got dressed up and put on makeup. And Harper has a concern about her face. Her face, she believes, is too manly. They were sitting down to dinner, and Harper said one of the most interesting things. She said, I don't really like wearing makeup because it really highlights how imperfect my face is. I guess I just, we are so, makeup is so common in our society, and we're marketed makeup to make us look perfect or to highlight our beauty, or for whatever reason, it's always kind of given this really positive spin on it. It was really strange. I had never heard that comment before. And when Harper said that, I suddenly realized that all that corporate marketing, that was a fallacy, that they were sharing, well, they were trying to create a belief in ourselves of self-criticism that, our looks were just not enough. And so we always have to hide ourselves and be something different. And I think that was another thing that really took me by surprise. And I probably would never have seen it if it was just me talking about makeup. And, I don't like wearing makeup because it just highlights the fact that I'm not perfect. I wouldn't have seen that. But when Harper said that, it was such a blow between the eyes. And I suddenly realized how much pressure we're putting on people in a really subtle way. And we're training them to criticize themselves on a daily basis. It was such a common thing that's so ubiquitous across women and men today. And I mean, she just hit this really common thread that I couldn't say, well, that's not me. And it really helped bring home the concept of body shaming, of teaching us to criticize ourselves, and to help us keep our kidney channel out of balance. So those were the two things that watching that movie did for me. And the first one really was about teaching us fear, how socialization can teach us fear. And the second one was corporate marketing teaching us how to criticize ourselves. And those are the two things that happen when our kidney channel is out of balance. And if you hear that every day, you start to believe it. And it becomes this belief that you no longer acknowledge. And when you no longer acknowledge it, it can happen anytime. And you will respond to it out of fear, or you will respond to that hurt from being criticized or criticizing yourself. Yet you lose the awareness that you're doing this because you have become so indoctrinated. So that's what I meant when I said, hey, one of the things that you can do to really help improve your kidney energy is to read books about different people, different places, and that will allow you to see different viewpoints. And when you see different viewpoints, you can start to see your viewpoint, or you can take some time to analyze what your viewpoint is. And maybe through that, in this situation, when I was watching this movie, Will and Harper, I was able to identify some of the socialization and just how incredibly deep it had gotten into me. It had gotten in so deep that I really didn't even acknowledge it consciously anymore. I just reacted to it. And watching this movie helped me to bring it back up into the conscious and help me reassess, how is this working in my world, and how do I want to respond to it? Okay, until next time, I'll catch you on the other side.